How you doing, guys? Today's a tech video. Um, there's been a lot of controversy for a while about what really makes a saw run as good as it can for what you're putting into it. Well, there's people that think long blowdown is that, short blowdown is that, middle, don't matter. Okay? If you're building a saw you're happy with and you really like, then you're doing it right. If you're building real short blowdown and that's awesome, they're good for cookie cut, but nothing else. That's not just my opinion. This is a fact. Okay, so I'm just going to talk facts today. Okay, fact number one: blowdown is completely irrelevant. It does not do what you think. It does not. There are many more forces of nature going against you, thinking that, well, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to have my exhaust. I'm going to do so much machining, my exhaust will be way down there at 106. And I'm going to raise my transfers, and I'm going to get 15 degrees blow down. Boy, it's going to run like crazy. Okay, if you like that, a saw with no torque, then do that. Here's the real deal. And I'm going to draw some funny pictures here on my whiteboard here in a minute. Your blowdown is not what you think it is. It does not matter. Your blowdown, only thing you're worried about during your blowdown cycle, that means when the exhaust opens to when the transfers open. How many degrees should that be? I don't know. I don't know what you did. Are you running a pipe on your saw, stock muffler? That matters. What's your intake timing? That matters. These kind of things. Okay? What you're trying to do with blowdown is make sure that the exhaust gases are all the way out and the air fuel that shoved the exhaust gases out that comes up your transfers bounces back in. Okay? So that's a little after the true blowdown. But that's what it does matter. So, what we're going to do is explain, this isn't theories, this is scientific fact, why blowdown doesn't matter. Make sure your exhaust gases are out. One trick that can be done, be carefully done, is the exhaust can be widened just a little. You grab that corner and make that just a little wider there and there. Right now, just right down in the bottom here in the picture, but if it's right side up, it'd be at the very top, just slightly, and break that corner around so you don't hang a ring. You don't have to make the whole thing bigger. By having a slightly, and it doesn't take a lot, slightly wider exhaust that's rounded. It's about the shape of your 1/4-inch tooling. And that will help get them exhaust gases out. Okay? That'll let you run a little bit shorter. Let's say that you've ran them at 21, 22 degrees in a given saw. Let's use 372, for example. And you found that that's enough time to get the exhaust gases all the way out, and then you can open your transfers. Okay? Or you might find out that if you run a long bar, if you open that same saw at 24 degrees, which is just 2 degrees, it's got more torque. Okay? That's not at a sacrifice of horsepower. At that 92 to 10,000 RPM range, you will have more torque. That's just fact, the way it is. Can't help it. So, by doing heavy machining, which I'm totally against, if you don't machine if you don't totally understand. I'm loving this because I can just feel the vibes in this video of all the haters out there. It's like, oh, he's wrong, all what bullshit. You're watching. I got your attention. You can hate me if you want. I have your attention. Okay, so now that I got your attention, let me help you build better saws. I'm going to help you guys build saws that are crazy fast, that you can still use for work saws and cookie cutters. Okay, by knowing the balance of the numbers. What does it really take? First thing I'm going to do, because this is absolutely relevant for when you're changing your working RPMs, not peak. I do not care what your peak RPMs are. I don't care if a saw runs. If, let's say I want to cut at 10,000. This is just an example. I don't care if that runs 10,005 RPMs. I don't even care. I don't need 16, 17,000 RPMs out of that and let it drop into it. I want that RPM. I want to hold it. And I can make it happen, and so can't you. But what am I doing to my saw? Is my saw designed where it likes added RPMs in the cut, because that's really important. You know that. And there's more than one way to get that. But I'm going to tell you in the engine way, not just by putting a bigger sprocket, lean that bugger out and cut something really small, really fast. Yeah, that isn't doing loggers, firewood guys any good. So let's just concentrate on loggers and firewood guys, and you cookie cutter guys are gained from this too. Piston skirt wear increases every freaking 100 RPMs that you've increased it in the cut, let alone your peak RPMs if you want to just piss rev them. And I'm going to tell you why that is. Why certain saws have high piston skirt wear, like the MS661, 462, stuff like that. It's your compression height of your piston. It's from the center of your pin to the top of your piston. Okay, see this is a 372X torque, by the way. You notice from the center of this pin to the skirt, that is way closer this way than it is this way. That promotes a lot of wear on your piston. Okay, now this is a 372 highway pop-up. You can see where the normal wear line is at the very, very bottom. Just tiny bit. We'll look at it on this one here. It's much higher. I mean, it's right up in there, for Christ's sakes, is where your wear line is. Maybe, yeah, you can see it right there. That's your wear line. I got these pistons backwards. One of them's got a circlip in it. See that wear line? That's really telling you your pin's too low for the design, okay? First thing is, this piston is crazy heavy in these X-Torques. And with the amount of wear you see in this band right here, instead of like the 372, it's on just the very, very bottom of that, okay? But when you stick these together, look at the difference. For all respective purposes, this pin is fairly centered from the skirt to the top of the crown, whereas that one has got a really bad compression height. Okay, so saws that have a lower pin are going to get piston skirt wear. There are things that can be done about that I'm not sharing in this video because I don't want a 3-hour video, okay? I'm going to cover just the basics, make you aware if you're increasing your RPM in the cut in an X-Torque or 661 or anything, which is really what you're trying to do, expect extra piston wear. It's going to happen. Plain and simple. Okay. What you're trying to do is get your intake. You want your intake as open as quick as you can. The problem is it's got to close. You have a 360-degree circle the crank spins in, piston follows it off the rod. Where you get in trouble is having too much intake timing. Okay? It seems to be about the most efficient is 154 and a Husky 372 or any saw like them, even in the steel 46, 44, 66 mag. A lot of the common saws, let's call them modern saws, even though they're 30-year-old designs, some of them. And but anything that doesn't have points, let's talk that. Okay, when you close your intake too late, here's what happens. You've lost your impulse coming in. As your piston comes down, intake closes, the skirt closes on the bottom floor of the intake, and it shoves air and fuel mixture down up them transfers. So here's the mistakes that everybody makes. Don't fall in this trap, guys. And you're only kidding yourself if you want to think that I'm wrong, because I know I'm not wrong. I've done this an awfully long time. But I'm going to give you the info to get better at this and make better saws yet, faster saws. Just don't tell your buddies. Okay? Close that intake earlier. Don't run 168 degrees, 164 degrees total opening on your intake. I don't care what you do. Just don't. Because what happens is, when you have longer intake, let's say you decide, well, I'm just going to go ahead and open my transfers earlier and screw my blowdown. I don't even care about that. So you run your intake open longer and you run your transfer timing is open too long when you raise your transfers and your cylinder. And that little angle we put on them in the top is good. It gets that piston's really hauling. That helps get that air fuel up and engaged into the cylinder above the intake. That's where you're really pointing them ports. Okay, so that part's beneficial. It really is. Well, making these crazy tall transfers do you no good. None. Now I'm going to draw all this out so you understand it, because I understand pictures quite well too. I got to see it. Just talking isn't good enough. You limit how many degrees your transfers are opening. When your piston is at bottom dead center, one thing to look for in the earlier 372s and other saws too, especially when you do a base gasket delete, which is advisable. I do everything that way. Make sure that piston's not blocking half of that upper transfer. You've seen in that saw I built for Tin Man there, I taper this area right here above the pen, taper that area. And get that both sides evenly matched, so when the piston's at bottom dead center, the transfers are clear. Don't say, well, I'm just going to raise the transfers and make up the difference. Wrong. Then you got your transfer timing. Total opening is too far. Don't worry about blowdown. Worry about total opening. How long is my transfers open compared to how long is my intake? So what you guys are doing, some of you, and don't do this because it doesn't work, you're running a long intake timing, great big intakes, raising the crap out of them transfers, getting your blowdown. You went up so high that your blowdown is ridiculously short. Well, you found out if you don't put a great big friggin' dome piston in it, you're not making any power. When you finally do get this figured out, you say, well, I'm just going to cut X amount off the base and out of the cylinder and make that combustion chamber smaller, and I'm going to get horsepower just because I gained compression. Well, then you go ahead and do all that, and you find out, wow, this don't run like I thought. I've seen your saws run, guys. Those of you that hate me, I've seen them run. They're pathetic. They're absolutely pathetic, and I'm sorry. And I'm giving you benefit of the doubt right now. And then you find out, well, gee, I just got to bump my ignition timing up some. So you add 4, 6 degrees, 8 degrees to your ignition timing, and it runs better. You know why it does? You have created an inefficient engine. It's inefficient. It's going to burn a lot of fuel. Okay, straight up. It's going to burn a lot of fuel. If you burn a lot of fuel, you went the wrong way. Okay, plain and this is not my idea, my theory. This is science. This is fact. You're not getting by the laws of physics, period. You're not. You can't change that. Not on this planet anyway. Go to another planet, maybe it'll be different. I don't know. So, how do we work with what these perimeters make a nice, quick, fast saws? My saws turn up right now real fast. It's because I know don't run on the 372, and a lot of saws like them 154, 155 max. Sometimes I run them 151 or 152 on degrees of total opening. And then the challenge is for you, don't raise your freaking transfers so damn far. Maybe make them a little wider if you're trying to get more air up them. You're only going to displace however much air your piston, when it comes down, when the intake closes, And that's when the compression begins for the crankcase. That's how much air you're going to put up your transfers, period. So, when you go 170 degrees total intake timing or more, it's that much later that piston skirt seals on the intake and it starts compressing air. That's what counts. That's why what I'm telling you is correct. So, you got, now let's say you go get that through your head and you're running 154 degrees intake timing, but you still raise the transfers. Okay, so now you're compressing more air because the piston's coming down and you shoved it up them transfers. And that's worked. Your piston comes at bottom dead center, all the air's went up. There's a bounce back effect, gentlemen and ladies, that you're not taking into account an awful lot of times a second. Okay, that's air disruption. That's when if a piston has to move too far to close them transfers again, the pressure gradient that has built inside that cylinder, as that piston goes up, part of that charge goes back down them transfers. Okay? And this goes back to what I first was explaining. When them transfers just start to open, the air fuel that went into the pipe or muffler needs to be coming back in. Okay? There's a bounce there. And air fuel comes back in. Argue the point. I don't care. That's what's going on. I'm telling you straight out the way it is. So, if your transfers are open too long, let's say you've managed to scavenge all of your exhaust gases out. So you have nothing but air fuel bouncing back in, but your transfers are open too long. What has happened is that pressure gradient changes and it shoves the air fuel out of the exhaust, comes back in, and it goes back down your transfers. You've lost. What you need to do is keep everything up above that piston that you can. Long transfer timing will not keep air-fuel mixture above that piston. Think about what I'm saying, guys. Work it out. Now, before that I go on to the next segment of this video, I'm probably going to have to make 10 of these dang videos that really turn people off. And that's fine to me. I'm an old guy. I don't give a rat's butt. Yeah, I started with A, didn't I? If I was younger, it would get to me the way some of you guys treat each other and beat me up. Don't beat each other. Beat me up. Come on, I can take it. And it's because I'm right and you're wrong. Yeah, that's it. Refer to that rule. Honestly, I'm a nice guy. If you guys would just take the time to sit down and pay attention and try some of this, which I know some of you have, because it gets back to me that you have. You just can't tell your friends. And all of a sudden, you start running better. When you take the volume of this intake right here, this cross section, and how much air is here and here, when that piston has went up and it's pulled that air fuel in, you have just so much air fuel that when your piston closes that intake and shoves it back down, you have that much. That's what you got. That's all you got. Okay? So, this is a factory cylinder. If you notice, this intake it's only flared just a little bit at the very, where it goes into the cylinder, just the tiniest bit. Not way back. You're making your intakes way too big. I've seen them cut right over top of that transfer, and I've seen this transfer cut way over here. Well, yeah, okay, let's go with a transfer. That's not all bad, is it? Because you didn't change the height from there to there, which means total opening time. But you made it a little wider because you got tricky. You figured that out. And you could do the same thing here by cutting here a little bit and reducing this band. Rather than make taller transfers, you're trying to get that air fuel in and close that off before the bounce back from your exhaust comes back in and shoves your air intake charge down. I know this makes sense to a lot of you guys. But when you make that intake too big, it's way too much volume in this area compared to your intake. And what you've done, you've slowed that velocity way down. It's just dribbling and pooping out instead of coming in there rapid. It's only coming out just a little way. You want that all the way to the other side. And when that piston closes at 154, 155, and I've done this long, I've tested all of the theories. I know where it stops for work saws. This is not cookie cutter saw stuff. This is good, reliable work saw stuff. Okay? These intakes in steel and Husky are too much volume right here in this area compared to what the intake itself is. Okay? That intake should be way smaller than that exhaust. Okay? It's not. It's not. So you make that bigger, slow that velocity down, and the rest of what I'm telling you still don't work. It ain't going to work. It's a balance of things. Okay? Hopefully, this all makes sense. Maybe what I'm going to do is just use this as a part one, and then when I get the whiteboard out, which is sitting right beside me, I can do it right now, it really, really makes sense of what's going on inside that saw. But just try it, guys. Try what I'm telling you. Don't raise the transfers. Make them a little wider. Don't raise your exhaust. Make it a little wider. I tell you what I do for my blowdown. I tell you, the only thing I'm concerned about is I like opening, as long as I got ample compression, which doesn't mean crap loads. Ample compression, I like 100 degrees on a 372. The steel chainsaws, like the 44 and 46, 66 mag, they don't like long intake timing like the Husqvarnas do. You stop at 150, 152 degrees. Just plain do that. Because you're not getting enough air up them transfers, and you got a backwash there, which I can show you how to beat that so you can run a little bit longer intake timing. I can show you how to do that, but I'm not going to in this video. Otherwise, if I told you everything in one video, you guys would know everything you need to know. You wouldn't need me no more. And then I could just retire from YouTube. But and while there's still haters out there and controversy out there, I'm going to stay on YouTube. I'm going to drive it right up your nose. I'm going to let you know where you're doing it wrong. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this. It ain't for you haters. It's for my likers. Do you know how many people over the last few years have built a saw using the method that I use, that I've stressed? I've got all kinds of tech videos out there. Australia, Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, Holland. Oh, my God, about every darn country in the world. I've got somebody that said, oh, my goodness sakes, I took my 372 or my 44 steel or whatever and applied what you taught us. And it just runs amazing. Absolutely amazing. And thank you. This video is for you guys that have got successful saws out there. We're all still learning. 40 years of doing this. I'm still learning. Don't think you know it all. And if you've only been doing this 10 years, you don't know enough to say boo to. You've learned a bunch of stuff, though. But with people like me and Tin Man, as far as building, and people like Buck and Billy, as far as operating the saw, Nuts 319 is a good saw operator. Go check him out. Plain and simple. Odie Horse 1, West Coast Cutter. He's a prime example of how to cut. So we've mixed the people we associate with, the cutters that use the saws, with the builders. And we're sharing this on different channels. Not just Buckins, but I love Buckin. I mean, he's a hoot, and he's good. He's real good. And his chains are sharp. Most loggers' chains are, if you've done it very long. So, to getting back to these basics, when you machine, I'm not saying it's a bad idea to machine. I'm saying understand everything I'm telling you here today first, okay? Because you can just keep machining till sky's the limit and till the cows come home and just keep losing and losing and losing and have to figure all these other things you have to do by staggering your transfer, to having your secondaries open way before the primaries. This is all crutches you don't need to do. It's way, way bunch of work to do what you're doing. And I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Don't do that. But let's talk numbers. Let's talk about what does it take to machine saws. Why would I do it? You don't have to. Number one, those of you that's been on this channel and sharing in the comments and emails, or I talk to on WhatsApp, that's built these saws, is really impressed with what you've done without machining. Some of you got lathes now, and you're starting to dabble with it. Okay, let's say your intake opens and closes, and it's a total of 147 degrees. I don't care. I don't want to hear a single number. I want to know both. I want to know the total. And let's say you want to shoot for 154 degrees from 147. Calculate in that area how many thousandths that you could take out the base and have that floor of the intake land on 154. These are example numbers, okay? Let's just say that you decided it was 50 thousandths. Okay, so we've taken 50 thousandths off the base of our cylinder. That drops the cylinder 50 thousandths, which drops the intake 50. Let's say we've hit our targeted 154. You don't have to use that number, but if you do, you'll like it. Okay, so you don't have to grind that intake floor. But what you just did is you took this poor piston and shoved it right up into that frickin' squish band. Now you got to take material off of your piston and create a little mini dome. And let's just say your squish was at 24 and you like 24. Don't get any closer than 20 on a 70cc saw. Smaller saws, you can go down to 16, 18. Bigger saws ought to have a little bit more. When I started that 20 thousandths rule, everybody picked up on it and say that's the gospel. It's not. I've got plenty of good ones at 28, 30 thousandths that run beautifully, just beautifully. Okay? You're thinking you're gaining a lot of compression by going another 4 or 5 thousandths by doing machining and stuff. You're not. You're not gaining horsepower, I'll tell you that. You just think you are. Okay, so what we're doing is once we took 50 off the base as an example number to hit what I wanted on the intake, you cut where your squish band is. You cut. It'll be a little area. Okay? And you created a dome. Okay, now this gives you something kind of way cool. Let's say all of a sudden you decided you want to angle your transfers up and it's getting uncomfortably close to what your exhaust timing is. Raise your exhaust roof. If you go 50 thousandths on your piston, to maintain a factory compression ratio, you're going to go 30 on your exhaust. Okay, this is about the ratio. Because if you go 50 on the exhaust, you're actually losing because of combustion chamber volume. Let's talk about combustion chamber volumes. Okay? Now, this is an early 371 cylinder, and I'm not sure you can see that, but look at the size of the combustion chamber compared to the squish. See that right there area from here to here is your squish band, and that's small. This is a highway, 52 millimeter, narrower. See, that's narrower. Bigger combustion chamber. Okay? Oh, gee, that's too big. I want it smaller. No, you don't. You don't want it smaller. You want it more efficient. You want it to work properly. Okay. So, you're going to take this wide band right here, and you're going to figure out that if you take half that away and you machine it, leave right on where it meets the cylinder, leave that. But I'm talking just, I'm going to tell you how much squish band you need. You need about that much. Okay, instead of that much. Okay? So, when you machine that squish band, like I'm telling you right now, do it at about 8-10 degree taper. Okay, going up into the cylinder, change your tool and break that edge once. You don't want a sharp edge. And then when you build your pop-up, just like I told you, out of your factory piston, I'm going to tell you, guys, it's worth 15% more than if you didn't do it. Try it. Prove it wrong. You won't be able to because you're going to make horsepower. That's where it is. When you can't get, when that piston comes up against that flat surface, factory ones are tapered slightly. You just don't realize it. But when you machine and that's flat, you just killed that saw. You killed it because squish band's too wide. Okay? That air has to start flowing up into that slightly larger combustion chamber. It isn't enough, say, Bluetooth when you get done. When that fires, that piston will take off, go in the other direction. Look out. I'm going to do a part 2 and with the whiteboard. Absorb this. Think about it. Argue amongst yourselves on whether I'm telling you right or wrong. Those of you who've been following me a long time as building saws, you're going to try this and you're going to realize now, all of a sudden, you can unlock the real serious horsepower that a two-stroke has. Goodbye.